You miscalculated. I love Zuko more than I fear you.
Iconic. Netflix's new Avatar The Last Airbender series is out, and in the spirit of that, I am wearing my Fire Nation red. But I also thought I'd revisit the OG and somebody I don't think we talk about enough, May. If you don't know Avatar, it is set in a world with 4 nations based on 4 elements: water, earth, fire, and air. And while the 4 nations have always existed in harmony,
everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked.
the Fire Nation has been conducting a 100-year war on these nations. Only the Avatar, who is the master of all the 4 elements, can put a stop to this war. And so the series follows Avatar Aang.
My name is Aang.
This is my accent, guys. Aang. It follows Aang, who has been frozen in ice for 100 years and has now re-emerged to this war-stricken world and has to learn the other 3 elements in order to become the Avatar he knows he can be, to put a stop to this war. He is helped by Katara and Sokka of the Water Tribe, Toph of the Earth Kingdom, and in the beginning of the show, he is hunted down by our favorite bad boy turned good, the banished Fire Nation Prince, Zuko. Avatar is really good, so much so that this kids' TV show has been referred to by some as one of the greatest TV shows of all time. It has everything. It has comedy, it has drama, it has some tragedy, it has really complex characters, and it has a rich world that is currently still being explored today, almost 2 decades later. So, with all the amazing things and all the amazing people in Avatar, why have I decided to talk about that?
That gloomy girl who sighs a lot?
I'll tell you. Let me confess, first of all, I'm a Mako shipper, and I have been since I got introduced to the show as a teenager. Sutara, I do see your vision, but I'm a Mako shipper, and I attach myself to May because of this. I think I always stuck to canon ships because I didn't want to get my heart broken, although that didn't always help. So, who is May? May is a rich girl from a noble Fire Nation family. She's a non-bender, which means she can't control any of the elements like some of the other characters can, but she's very skilled with small knives and daggers. Very, very skilled markswoman. She is best friends with Azula, who is the evil Fire Nation princess, and she's Zuko's love interest. That's going to be very important for this video. But May is odd because in this show, she doesn't seem to want anything. Like, Azula is motivated by this need to protect her power, and Zuko is motivated by rage and also this need to gain the love and respect of his father. But May doesn't seem to be motivated by any of that or seem to have that same drive. She says later on in the show that she grew up privileged and got everything she wanted as long as she behaved. So it seems that because she got everything she wanted, she didn't need to develop any wants, really. But I'll talk about that later on. We first meet May in Omashu, which is a city in the Earth Kingdom that has been overtaken by the Fire Nation. So her father has been installed as the new governor of this city. And here, Azula comes to meet May and asks her to join her on a mission. And May says yes before she even knows what the mission is. Why? Because she is bored. Keep in mind, this city is an Earth Kingdom city, right? So there are people living in the city who are trying to decide if they want to fight for their city back from the Fire Nation or if they want to go away and regroup. And while all this is going on, of course, May has no idea that it's happening because she's sitting in her house and she's being like, this place is so boring. I want to leave. Nothing ever happened here. You could also say, though, that the reason why she said yes so quickly is because Azula is very threatening and has threatened her friends on multiple occasions. And so maybe May said yes just to bypass all the threatening she knew would come her way and get to the point she was going to get to anyway. But May goes on this mission with Azula and their other best friend, Ty Lee. The 3 of them are really out here, like, burning down villages, destroying communities, killing people. The show doesn't show anyone dying, but let's be real, they kill people. And I don't think she's doing any of this, again, because she really cares about this mission or she really wants to. It's just something for her to do, and it's something that she can do, so she does. Does this sound familiar? She also believes that she's in the right, and I think this is why it is something that is easy for her to do. So May, Azula, and Ty Lee went to a school called the Royal Fire Academy for Girls. Did I say that right? The Royal Fire Academy for Girls. And I think that every person in this show who went to that school was trained to be a weapon in case they needed to fight in the war. And I think this because May, Azula, and Ty Lee are the only people I believe that we see in the show who went to the Royal Fire Academy for Girls, and they really only have one thing in common. Also, in the episode The Headband, when Aang infiltrates a Fire Nation school and pretends to be a student, we learn that the Fire Nation children are being taught to be allegiant to Fire Lord Ozai, who is Zuko's father, who is destroying the world, and also are being taught revisionist history. So they're learning that the Fire Nation fought fair battles with other armies from other nations, when in reality, the Fire Nation armies ambushed the communities and killed everybody in them, basically. Imagine May growing up with this ideology drilled into her. That knowledge, coupled with her skills in combat, I think make her pretty dangerous. So we move through this show. At this point now, they are tracking down the Avatar and Zuko, fighting people. And again, May she isn't really motivated by anything as they go along. And all this comes to a head in the episode called The Beach, which acts almost like a therapy session for some of the characters, where May shares that she did get everything she wanted if she behaved herself so as not to spoil her father's political career. But because of this, she kind of grew up, yes, getting everything she wanted, but also not knowing how to express her wants or even any other emotion, because that could be seen as erratic and destroying the thing her parents were trying to build. So she grew up to be this bleak teenager. In fact, the only time we see May even remotely happy in this show is when Zuko returns to the Fire Nation and they get to be a couple for a few days before he leaves. So while they're here, they're literally just hanging out. They're ordering fruit tarts. They're taking walks around the city. May is encouraging Zuko a lot because he's going through so much. And surprisingly, May isn't complaining anymore. Nothing big and exciting is happening, but now she is content. That girl is in love. But her happiness doesn't last long because Zuko does eventually leave to join the Avatar. And I find this whole situation so funny because it's bigger than both of them. So Zuko leaves to join the Avatar to help him stop his father from destroying the world. And May is very upset by this, and she's angry because he did not leave without saying goodbye to her face, or breaking up with her to her face. So she holds him up and confronts him in this prison cell. And she tells him, "You are betraying your country." And again, I don't think she cared that he was betraying the country as much as she cared that he was leaving her behind. But this is something that she has been trained to believe. So I can see why she believes that and she would say it to him. When Azula tries to stop Zuko from leaving, May attacks Azula, allowing Zuko and the others to escape. Now we've established that Azula is very dangerous. She has a lot of power. She's a Fire Nation princess and she's one of May's best friends. And also May has been trained to be allegiant to her country. But by attacking Azula and allowing Zuko to go free, she's betraying her best friend. She's going against everything she believes, and she knows that she will be punished for doing these things, but she does them anyway. She loves Zuko more than she fears Azula or the Fire Nation or any of the consequences that come with betraying them. I saw a quote or heard a quote last week that said, "Love is the greatest motivation for change." And I realized that having that love or something that you care about is really what gets people out of bed in the morning. In my first video on this channel, I mentioned how there was a point in my life where I was just kind of doing whatever, going with the flow. I think I was being pretty apathetic with my life, honestly. And at that point, if I didn't have someone to meet or somewhere to go, getting out of bed was really hard. And it wasn't because I was sad, but it was because I really didn't have the motivation to do any of the things I wanted to do. So I spoke to my mom about this, actually, just about like, what am I doing with my life? And she led me to do this exercise that would basically help me pinpoint what I care about. We always talk about what is my purpose, why am I here, which can be very overwhelming. But this exercise helped me to break that down. And it asks about your experiences, what makes you happy, what makes you sad, what makes you angry. And the point is that underneath all of those things is something that you truly care about. That's why it elicits such big reactions from you when either it happens or it doesn't happen. And doing this kind of helped me shape who I want to be, what I want to do with my life, with my career, even helped me see with work that there were things that I was doing that I already cared about, but I just lost sight of because I got so caught up with going through the motions and with all the busyness. So if you're feeling that lack of motivation, I would recommend that you do something like that. Find something you care about, or some people or someone that you care about, and really lean into that. And it doesn't just have to be with work or with your career. It can be, who are you spending your time with? What hobbies do you want to do? Even causes that are really, really close to you that you want to get involved with, I think is a good way to find those things out. But back to the show. Mei betrays Azula, so she's thrown in jail, where she remains until Aang does defeat the Fire Lord and Zuko is crowned the new Fire Lord. So Mei is released and they get back together. And the final shot, I believe, picture of this show is Team Avatar all hanging out. And now we see that Mei is a part of them. So we can presume that they are on good terms, even though we hadn't seen any good interactions with them before this. Mei's love for this one guy has now led her to a place where she is interacting and listening and building relationships with people she was taught were her enemies. Her love motivated change. And I honestly think that's such a beautiful way to end the show, like all of them just hanging out, and Mei and Zuko are back together and they live happily ever after until the comics. So I realized that many people don't actually know that these comics exist, but they do, and they're really good. There's a lot of them, so go check them out if you want. I'm gonna speed through Mei's story and give like really bare bones summary of her story in the comic books. So Zuko is Fire Lord, and he is going through a lot now because now he has to rule this new world that they've made. And there are people in this world that don't want him to be the Fire Lord and have made many attempts on his life. So he's kind of losing it a bit. He starts talking to his dad, who is in jail, and going to him for advice because his dad is the only person he knows that understands what it's like to be in this position as Fire Lord. But Mei isn't happy about this because Zuko is keeping secrets from her and not sharing his burdens with her. So she dumps him and she goes to stay with her aunt and her mom and help her aunt run a flower shop. And one day, while Mei is running the shop, this guy called Kalo walks in. He tries to ask Mei out, but then Mei discovers that he's actually working for her father, who has put together a group to try and take Zuko out, take him out of the throne. So Mei uses Kalo to gain information on this group, and she uses this information to save Zuko's life. Later on, and then she starts dating him. Later on, her brother is kidnapped by some evil spirits, and with the help of Zuko, whose baby sister has also been kidnapped, they save the children. Mei dumps Kalo, and I've been waiting for what happens ever since. It's been almost 10 years. I do kind of feel bad for Mei because I would love to see who she is outside of being Zuko's love interest. Like, who is this girl? What are her interests? What does she like and dislike? But then I also understand that she is a side character, so she exists mainly within Azula's story or Zuko's story. And also we've kind of established that she didn't really have any wants anyway, so I'm just working with what I've got. But I say that because I think the best way love can motivate change is when it makes you better and allows you to stand on your own feet and on your own morals instead of always having to source that from outside the entire time. And I want that for Mei. And I'm hopeful about that because Michael DiMartino and Brian Konietzko, who are the creators of Avatar, are currently working on a series of movies and I think TV shows that are based on these characters and set in this world, but a little bit into the future. So when they're all young adults, which I think will be really interesting to see how they navigate this post-war world. But also I'm hoping that Mei shows up and she's doing good and just doing things outside of being Zuko's girlfriend. Hopefully we see more of her growing and interacting with the other characters and kind of forming her own moral structures and things that she truly cares about just outside of Zuko, even though I am a shipper. But before that, go check out the 2 TV shows streaming on Netflix and the comic books that are also out as well. And I will see you in my next video.